Hi, my name is Veronica Lee, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your intuitive powers. Now, I am an intuitive, so it may seem a little bit tricky for me to share what my skills are with someone who doesn't feel so skilled. And perhaps you do. Perhaps you have access to some of your own tools. But I'm going to assume that you are a little bit less comfortable with your own intuitive skills. When you access your intuition, you bring forth information that you don't necessarily get from your normal five senses. This is valuable because with our five senses, we are limited to what we can perceive about our world, what we can gain information about our world. By using the senses behind our senses, our clear senses, we can get a better picture, description, and view of the world. The bigger goal is not necessarily to become intuitive and get paid and, do readings for people. And of course, you can choose to do that. The idea is to really integrate your intuitive powers, enabling you to have access to a greater picture of how the world is perceived through your senses so that you can act accordingly and feel as if you are dealing with a greater scheme, a greater picture, so that your decisions become much easier. Now, the easiest thing for me to do is to share a little bit with you about my methods. Specifically, I have learned how to use lots of methods, and when I was a lot younger, I learned how to do visualization and meditation, and I'm talking at a very young age. I did hands-on healing, but when I was ready to really develop this as a skill, as a profession, let's say, I decided to learn how to access the Akashic Records. Now, some people believe that the Akashic Records are an energy field in which our lives are laid out. They're, closed in this book, and all you do is open it up, read it, and say, here's what's going to happen to you. That's not quite how it works, and that's not how I bring information. But through this field, I am able to access an energy field which is greater than my own perceptions. The methodology that I use is accessing the Akashic Records, but there are so many different methods. For example, some people read tarot cards, some people look at astrology. There are lots of tools that we can use. The Akashic Records are simply a tool. The key is not whether or not I've accessed the records, let's say, or whether or not I've lifted a card and read, the card. The idea behind our intuition is to really have a sense as to what it is we are reading, what the information is that we are getting, and then being able to interpret that in some way to make it useful, obviously. I don't necessarily, however, have to access the records to get information. For me, I specifically tend to know things, feel things, see things, and sometimes I'll even hear things. So let me bring you an example. Before I learned how to be an intuitive professionally, I would see situations play out at work. Maybe one woman who wanted to get a raise acted a certain way, and she would spend a lot of time maybe talking to the boss, and then maybe I had noticed another woman who was frustrated with her relationship with the boss in terms of her talking, and I could see things, stewing. In that experience, I would then maybe tell somebody else, oh, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, and here's what it's going to look like. I had no idea I was looking at things in a different way than most people. So, for example, after a repeated experience that another person had with me in doing this, she said, from now on I'm going to start listening to you because you're always right about situations. At that time, I couldn't even see that I was really looking at things a little bit differently than other people. To me, it was obvious. This happened, therefore this was probably going to happen. In other words, most of our own personal intuitive skills are skills that are so developed, so refined, that we don't necessarily know we're even using them. So, for example, if you tend to have a gut feeling about something, you just know it's a gut feeling, or maybe you notice you get goosebumps, that's it right there. The question is do you listen to those feelings? Do you pay attention to that which you are getting? I have used many other methods. For example, I've played with pendulums, I've used cards. In fact, when I do self-reading, it's much harder for me to discern what my ego is telling me out of fear or what it is that I'm intuiting. So that's when I'll actually resort to a deck of cards. There are so many cards out there. There are so many methods out there. In addition to divination cards, there are pendulums, there are crystal balls, there are all kinds of crystals in and of themselves. A lot of people like crystal skulls, for example. The tool, again, is just a means to bring forth that which we are already getting, that which we already know. What I'd like to invite you to do is to play with this idea of energy and see how it can be useful in your life. Energy is really everything that I read. So for example, I literally don't see an aura around someone. I literally don't see a white elephant, but I might get an inner image of an aura or sense an aura or a color, or I might get a visual picture of a white elephant. However, the idea is that these are energy imprints, right? They are working in the metaphysical realm. And yet we have access to interpreting them once we start to develop that trust and that sense of them. So for starters, here is a simple tool you can try to do to play with energy. What I want you to do is just take your hands and try to feel any place where the hands feel like they have a field of energy around them. You can try it several times to just get a sense as to where that energy field seems to radiate from the other hand, where it seems to stop. What you can do is do this across your whole body. So feeling and noticing, is there anything that feels like it's cold or maybe sticky or sharp, warm? Just bringing that awareness by using your hands to feel the different aspects and areas of your energy field and your physical, emotional, and mental bodies. Feeling these energy fields, trying to find what you're noticing, paying attention. Now, in addition to feeling them in your body and in your hands, you can now have a sense of what it's like to gather energy, to use it and direct it in any kind of way. What you can do is start to form a ball, and again, to try to do this with an intention, like, oh, I'm forming a ball, I'm going to go ahead and gather and grab energy, and then just pull it together, and then see if it feels different than what you felt the first time. Again, gather and pull energy. Imagine you're pulling it. Maybe you pull it from the heavens above. Maybe you pull it from the earth below. And just bring it in and bring it in. And bring good intention and good thoughts with that as you bring it in. And again, feel where that energy rests. Does that feel a little bit more substantial than perhaps that initial feeling of energy? Have you gathered a ball, let's say? Now, after you've done that, you can take this energy, the energy that you've intended to pull together, and then you can direct that to any part or all parts of your body if you wish. So for example, if you were noticing a pain in your belly, you can bring that energy, which is of course infused with good thoughts, and bring it and hold it over your body, bringing that around. So those are simple techniques that you can play with and try. The other suggestion, which is not necessarily accessible to you, but you could try to make it accessible, would be to look for a deck, any kind of a deck of cards that are for divinity, whether they are medicine cards, tarot cards, anything like that. And then what you can do is pull 3 cards, one representing where you've been, one representing where you are, and one representing where you are heading. And when you do that, the first thing you should do is look at each of the cards, lay them out, look at each of them, and then bring awareness to the first card that you pulled, your past, for example, and then get a sense as to what that card is telling you. If you are a visual person, really study, look at the card, really get a visual sense of it. If you are an empath and if you feel things, then maybe that card will be giving you information through that part of your body. Once you've looked at each of those cards in that way, you can write down what it is you think, what it is that you're getting from that message from the card. Almost every deck has with it a book that explains and describes what that card is about. Once you've done that, then you can, after you've done the writing, you can go and check the book and see how their description relates to what it is you intuited with your own personal perception. And then what you can do is compare the two. Was the writing that was from the book pretty darn accurate in terms of your own life? Was what you wrote anything to do with what this book described? And if not, how did these two relate? What was there? I hope this works for you. Play, have fun with it. It's nothing serious, it's nothing big. Your world's not going to completely change overnight. But little by little, as you develop your own intuitive powers, you are developing more of who you are. You are gathering more of your power so that you can then bring forth that part of you as a full, integrated part of you into the world with confidence. And thank you so much for joining me.